What is up, everybody? If you don't know who I am, my name is Ethan Hayes, and I've done over 1 billion views organically across the lifetime of me posting on social media. I've actually taken those billion views and turned it into roughly $500,000 through something called organic dropshipping. Now, this video is going to be going over, in general, how to go viral and the key components of going viral, but it's mainly catered to dropshipping. But lucky for you, even if you aren't doing organic dropshipping, you can still apply about 75% of this to your content. As you can see, I have a really nice presentation here set up for you guys so you guys can really soak up all of this information as good as possible. And no, this is not going to be your generic, oh, just make better content sort of video. We're going to get into the nitty gritties. We're going to get into the details. I even have examples for you guys, for all my visual learners, the whole 9 yards. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. Okay, so first, let's talk about the key components of what makes a good short form video. First, you have your hook, which is the first 1 to 3 seconds of your video visually and the text you have on screen. Second would be your visuals and background. So your lighting, the environment you're in, the props and setup, all the way down to how you're moving in frame and where things are at while you're filming. Now, the third one is the only one out of the 4 that isn't absolutely necessary, but when done and used correctly, can 10x your content just from it alone. And then our last key component would be your audio. So whatever kind of sound or music you're playing in the background, or even your voice. Okay, so now let's jump in and break down number 1. The very utmost, most important part of any and every piece of content, short form or long form, but specifically short form, is your hook, which, as we already discussed, is the first 1 to 3 seconds of your video. Now, this has to do with visuals and your text. A lot of people, when they talk about a hook, they only talk about the text on screen, but its counterpart that is just as important is the actual visual going on in the video. Now, after I break all of this down, I'm gonna go over a good and bad example of visuals and text hooks so you can get a better idea of what it looks like in actual video format. But to break down a text hook and what's going to make the best text hook and some things to keep in mind when creating one are, does it inflict some sort of emotion to pull the brain out of doom scrolling? So it needs to inflict enough emotion, enough something to make somebody go from doom scrolling and brainlessly just to having to actually stop and think for a second. You're also going to want to make the viewer intrigued enough to wonder what happens next, to kind of carry them along, to make them sit there and say, okay, I'm interested enough now to see what it is they're talking about or what it is that they mentioned with their text or visual hook. So as we get further and further into the video, you're going to start to notice that a lot of all these tips and tricks and things that actually go into making good short form content plays a huge role on psychology. And with that in mind, related to our text hook, you also want to think, how can I make them assume something cool, scary, sentimental, or exciting is going to happen next? Okay, now let's move on to the little brother of hooks that nobody ever talks about, which is your visual hook, okay? This needs to be the scroll stopper. This can be a plethora of things. It needs to be something either satisfying, super crazy happening, super controversial, really cool looking, something that stands out and separates your video from every other video on the platform. And to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, we're gonna move on to some examples. Let's first start actually with a bad visual and text hook. So as you can see, that was very plain Jane, nothing crazy happening. You're just putting something into the frame of the camera, which is what 99.9% of people do and think is some sort of good visual hook just because they're doing anything at all, which is not the case. It looks bad, it looks horrible. You're not grabbing the attention of the viewer. And the same thing goes for his text hook. Look at this. TikTok made me buy it. It cured my girlfriend's anxiety. First of all, TikTok made me buy it. You're automatically letting the viewer know that this is some sort of ad, which is not your goal ever. Remember, we're hiding ads in the form of engaging content. And now I have this little tab over here that says nitty gritty, so we can actually discuss a few other issues with that video we just watched. Now, these are the little things that nobody ever talks about. These are the actual deep down details that seem really minor and seem really small, but actually matter. So first big issue is his text placement. You can get away with having your text at the bottom, but it needs to be executed properly. It was a little too small than it should have been. And for that exact concept, it would have made so much more sense to be in the most common area that text is, which is actually around this area. So this is where the viewer's eyes naturally gravitate when scrolling and watching videos, mainly because this is the most common format of any short form video being posted. A great tip that can help you with this, that you want to keep your text between your bottom volume button and your power button on your phone. And another nitty gritty detail is product placement. This isn't horrible, but since his text is also in a horrible spot, it does make it bad. If you're gonna go the bottom route, which isn't recommended and only works like 1 times out of 10 compared to the latter, but if he was gonna try to commit to this, he should have flip-flopped his text and product placement. So instead of text being here and product placement being in that middle to bottom area, he should have had the product in more of an upper area and the text lower and also bigger, ending about right here and here, which just helps with the overall aesthetics of the video itself, actually pleasing the consumer's eyes. Okay, so now that we've seen a bad visual and text hook, let's take a look at what a good one looks like. So off rip, once again, now we talk about psychology and how this plays a huge role on our content. This is honestly as bold as it can get with emotion evoking. It's literally a girl crying. That's automatically going to make the viewer say, oh my gosh, why is she crying? I want to see why she's crying. And in general, you're scrolling, doom scrolling. If you pop up on a video of a girl just blatantly crying, staring at the camera, that in itself is a scroll stopper. And then to top it all off, great text hook with, no one gives a shit about your stupid Christian case business. Not only is he targeting his niche, but he's also evoking another emotion, which is more negative, which only goes into all of the good traits of a text hook that we were just talking about. And also, now that we're here, another nitty gritty we were gonna go over is negative hooks always outperform positive hooks. So something like this compared to, oh my gosh, my family loves my Christian business, is always going to perform better. You can look up the psychology behind it yourself, but as human beings, we naturally gravitate towards more negativity and are attracted towards negativity more than we are positivity. And this is kind of off topic, but helps with the psychology understanding of things. This is why news outlets perform better and have higher ratings and more views, and you constantly see them only putting out horrible, crazy stories, wars, all this crazy stuff, because they understand the psychology of a human being gravitating more towards and being more interested in something negative compared to something, you know, super happy, uplifting, and upbeat. And the last thing before we move on to controversy I want to talk about are your emojis. Once again, this is something very small that you would never even think about, but they do matter. Emojis themselves can change the entire vibe of a video. They are literally there to represent a certain emotion, hence the name emoji. So when you are going to use emojis on your text hooks or anywhere in your video, make sure that they match the vibe that you're trying to feed the viewer. Okay, now moving on to the infamous controversy. Okay, first, what is controversy exactly? In simple terms, it's just manipulating the viewer to somehow in some way engage with your content via comments or shares. Now, a couple things with controversy is less is more. So don't ever overdo it. The less blatant and less obvious it is, the better it's going to perform. You're trying to sneak it in there. Okay, you're not trying to make it obvious, because then there's no need for the consumer to feel like they have to send it to a friend because like, oh, did you see that? Or they have to comment, and there's no need to state the obvious. So the best controversy is hidden in plain sight. Now, the most common types of controversy you're going to see within content are, you know, sometimes mispronouncing a word, calling something the wrong thing, like let's say you're showing a Ferrari and you call it a Lamborghini, or just blatantly misspelling a word. But keep in mind, when trying this sort of controversy, you want to keep it unintentional. So if your plan was to add controversy by mispronouncing a word, you wouldn't want to make it obvious to the viewer. In that exact sense, you would genuinely want to make yourself look dumb, giving the viewer an opportunity to get some sort of ego boost by commenting about it and trying to make themselves seem smarter than you do.
I'm stronger, I'm smarter.
Now, the next style of controversy that's a little bit harder to pull off and actually get to work is a funny or good joke. For this to work, it has to genuinely be funny. It has to be funny enough and humorous enough. There has to be enough there for the consumer to almost feel obligated to let everybody know how humorous and how funny it was to them. Now, how can we do this? There's multiple different ways. The best ways to go about it are maybe an inside joke within the niche. For example, I was running an anime product, and one of the most known famous characters within the show had actually ended up like dying from somebody punching him through the stomach. We're not going to get into all that, but there ended up being a meme circulating around the show that was also trending when I made this video, where everybody was calling him a donut. People were making memes, people were posting photos about it, the whole 9 yards. So what I did when making videos, every time that character would come up, I would somehow throw something in there that had to do with the donut joke, and the audience ate it up, which led to more engagement by sharing it with a friend, talking about how funny it was, and letting everybody know how funny it was to them by commenting on the video. So now the third most common type of controversy, which honestly out of all of them is probably the worst kind of controversy, but it's hidden what the fuck moments. Now this can mean all kinds of different things, but it's mainly just something weird maybe occurring in the background, or a sexual joke. But a lot of the times when somebody's trying to pull off this style of controversy, they take it too far and it leads to very bad engagement and negative engagement, which for a personal brand isn't horrible. It doesn't really matter because you're just looking for engagement overall. But when you're trying to monetize your views and sell something, it can decrease the amount of viewers that actually turn into buyers. And to give you a better idea of what I mean by hidden what the fuck moments, for instance, let's imagine you were out in public filming, but you had a buddy go stand somewhere deep in the background, almost to where it's completely unnoticeable and only a certain amount of people will even notice this, but you had him walk backwards instead of forwards. Or let's say you're trying to show something on a computer or a phone, and for a quick second, something very odd, normally has something to do with like a sexual joke, pops up, and then you quickly go away from it like it never even happened, like you never even saw it. So real quick before we get to visuals and backgrounds, let's go over and look at what bad controversy looks like. So this hook, my uncle is so creepy for getting me this. This is highly controversial. This isn't going to lead to any sales with this product because the only reason it's going to go viral is because of just how weird this is. And once again, this is not hidden in plain sight how controversy should be. This is the most blatant and obvious controversy that they could have came up with. Okay, and now we're gonna move on to good controversy. And you guys will start to notice every time I show you an example, the bad ones have horrible engagement and didn't perform well at all. The good examples that are doing everything correctly compared to its component, whether it's with the controversy, with the hook, whatever it may be, when they actually pull that off correctly, that's reflected in their engagement, and 9 times out of 10, it's a viral video. Okay, so now let's resume. Let's look at his good controversy. Okay, so boom, did you see it? And this is why it's so good. If you couldn't tell, in the very bottom right corner, his foot was on the scale. And now, not everybody's gonna see that because it's so hidden in plain sight, and almost as if he slipped up by showing that part on camera. And then boom, to show you how good of controversy this was, you can just go look at the comments. Bro's foot is on the scale. People who saw his foot in the corner. Your hand is on it. You can barely see his foot on the scale in the bottom right corner. Without all of this extra engagement from him perfectly executing controversy, this video would not have performed nearly as good. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to what funny controversy looks like perfectly executed. And yes, it's one of my videos.
What's poppin'?
Pause right there. I will let the rest of the video play through real quick. As you can see, it was very quick. It was very in there. It was more obvious because 9 times out of 10, your funny or jokingly sort of controversy is going to have to be obvious. But while doing this really nice style of having like characters pop up and whatnot, I just went to Pinterest and looked up funny Demon Slayer memes. And I ended up stumbling across a bunch of different characters as cats. And once again, to see if this played out how we wanted it to, even though it might not have been the most crazy controversy and led to the most crazy engagement, it's still some sort of extra engagement. And no matter how big or small, extra engagement is going to lead to extra views. So looking in the comments here real quick, we're at least getting some sort of reaction from the audience. Bro did not have a photo of Soname. I just saw another one, Soname as a cat. Soname as the cat is sending me. So this is what it looks like to actually pull off good, jokingly funny controversy. So now let's move on to our visuals and background. This, out of all of the components you think would come most naturally to people, and at least understanding that everything needs to look nice and good. But this is honestly the main problem I see with beginner content creators. A lot of their videos, a lot of their visuals, everything really horrible lighting. Their background looks so cheap and unintentional, like they're just randomly halfway staring at a carpet with an ugly wall. There's like no thought that goes into registering like every part of the video needs to look great. And when you're so focused on your text, your visuals, moving it, and this and that, you completely forget about one of the most important aspects of your video, which is the visuals and background. Now, there's not much material to go over with on this because, backgrounds are so broad. Anybody can have any kind of different, it's a lot. But I'm hoping just the fact of me bringing it up is enough to change that entire aspect of your videos. I'm also going to leave you with a couple tips and things to keep in mind pertaining to visuals and background. So the first will be being intentional with your backgrounds. Whatever's in the background, you need to make it a point that you decided to have that in the background. Do not think of it as an afterthought. And if you're really wanting to go the extra mile, which you should, especially if you're really starting to make money from creating content in any sort of way, go and buy some props and maybe even some room decor just to make your backgrounds look better. In my home office at my studio, I've set up this entire place to look like a TikTok trendy room. So now I'm automatically relating with majority of the audience that's gonna see any of my videos. Always make sure that your visuals and background relate to the product and video concept concept itself. For instance, if I'm promoting some really cool kitchen utensil, you need to make that video in a nice kitchen with things set up, looking really aesthetic, really nice, as good of an environment you can make it with what you got, and not filming it outside in the woods or in your room in front of your computer, which sounds pretty self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised how many beginners mess this part up. And my last tip for you is everything the viewer sees needs to satisfy them in some way, whether it's super satisfying, insanely cool movements, doing something out of the ordinary that they wouldn't normally see, or just overall aesthetically pleasing. A good way to think about this is make sure everything is what I like to call eye candy. So even the simplest of movements or actions, make them as silky smooth and as nice looking as you possibly can. And as for all the other ones, I have examples here for my visual learners. So now we're going to take a look at a video that has bad visuals and a bad background, automatically off rip. So he's promoting anime glasses. They do like this cool light up feature, whatever. Being in the bathroom itself isn't the best, but that's not what makes this so bad. It's the little things that nobody tries to take into consideration. First of all, look how dirty this mirror is. Second of all, he didn't even take the 5 seconds it takes to clean up his whole bathroom to make it really nice and aesthetic and pleasing to the eyes. It makes his entire home, himself, and the video itself look cheap, which is never the feeling you want to give the viewer, especially when you're promoting a product. And then just overall, he kind of put in a little bit of work for visuals, but just look at that framework right there. Look how nothing's really changing. There's nothing aesthetically pleasing going on. He literally just looks like a guy filming and doing random stuff, where instead he could have cut a lot of this up, been closer, made some really dramatic, odd movements, and made it just that much more appealing to the viewer. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we're gonna move on to a video that has good visuals and a great background. Now, pause. This is what it looks like to go out and make good content. Look at the extra mile. Look how fitting, and just even me, I'm not even a car guy, and I'm looking at this like, wow, that is so nice to my eyes. That is so cool. Where is he? He's in some like supercar garage. And by the time I process all of that, I'm looking at it and realize, oh, he's promoting this cool car guy product. Now look at these visuals as well. Everything's perfect, good, nice panning, transitions. Now this is more of a showcasey product. It's very hard to make content for in general, but he did the best he could. And the background, look at how he went this extra mile. So not only is everything ridiculously aesthetically pleasing, regardless if you're into cars or not, he's automatically relating to his target audience and his target viewer and pulling them in. Any car guy on planet Earth sees this, they're automatically at least gonna stop scrolling for a few seconds. And just everything about this video relates to the product so well and executed so good. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our final component that majority of people thinks matters the least, but it's actually up there in the rankings. I would say all of these collectively matter just as much as the other, because it's not one specific thing that makes good content. It's everything as a whole, everything collectively, all of the little things added up that makes a viral video. Because you can do everything else perfect, but if you're missing just one of these components, that can throw off your entire video. But enough yapping, let's get into your audio and sound. First and foremost, especially when related to promoting products, and once again, this even goes into any type of content, you want to use a viral sound within your niche by all means necessary. How you're going to do this is whatever your niche may be, try to get a few words to sum it up in your own mind, go to the TikTok search bar, type that in, go through some videos, look at some of the most viral sort of theme pages within that niche, and start finding very recently viral videos within the niche. Once you do this, click on the sound of these viral videos. If you look at the top and they're directly related to your niche or whatever you're trying to make a topic about, and they're made within the last 7 days and they've gone somewhat viral, it is now a trending audio within your niche. The reason this is so important is because if you've ever took the time to actually sit there and consciously scroll, which you should be to develop your skill as a content creator as a whole, it just helps in every aspect, helps you come up with ideas, take rendition from other people, the whole 9 yards. But for those of you that have actually sat there and consciously scrolled before, which is just thinking instead of just doom scrolling, but you're actually thinking, trying to get content ideas, all kinds of stuff like that, you'll notice that if you engage with a video that has a specific audio, that it starts to pop up more and more, and you'll go from never hearing or seeing this sound to now it's like every other video it's popping up. So now let's get into the mind of the consumer, of the viewer. Really what we're doing when we're using trending audios and trending sounds is we're squeezing our way into our target audience's For You page. So let's imagine you're selling a Hello Kitty product. Your ideal audience is someone who loves Hello Kitty. So let's say they go and watch a video unrelated to products or anything, but it has something to do with Hello Kitty. They're obviously going to engage with it because that's the audience. So now TikTok is going to keep feeding them videos with this audio, especially if it's trending and going viral for multiple different accounts. So now it's all starting to make sense to you. It's really the simplest way that you can just throw yourself right in front of your target audience. So now, just outside of looking for trending audios, you want to make sure that your audio resonates with the exact same vibe of the video itself. So if you're trying to inflict some sort of sad emotion, the audio needs to be sad and more low vibrational, right? If I'm making some super depressing sad song, or my product itself is kind of sentimental, maybe the product itself has something to do with like a family member passing away or relationship stuff, you're not going to want to have drill rap playing in the background while you're making some sort of video of you giving a really nice, cute gift to your partner. So now this one is a little harder to pull off consistently every single video. So it's not an absolute must, but I have here, you know, in a perfect world, every movement and transition would perfectly sync to the music. But no matter what, everything should flow as one. Really, all in all, the entire point of all of this is taking all 4 of these key components and turning them all into one synchronized beast. Sorry if that was cringy. Okay, so now let's go over an example of a bad use of an audio. I'm really hoping you can hear this. Okay, so overall the video itself was horrible. But you see how this audio, it's just so, it literally makes it feel like 2 separate things. Where, like I just said, we want them all to come together and be synchronized to where they're all one, just one piece of art. And this does the exact opposite. It literally, for me at least, makes my brain think this is a video playing and then this is music going on in the background. Okay, so now let's go over a good use of an audio. And yes, I'm self-glazing once more. This is the best example that I could find of really, and this is a very extreme version of it, but basically you see how every movement, every clip, every motion is perfectly synced up with the audio. Like I said, this is a bit of an extreme version of what I'm talking about, but seeing it in its most extreme form can give you a really good understanding of what I mean by, in a perfect world, every movement and transition would perfectly flow and go together with the sound. Okay, so that basically wraps us up, and now I want to go over basically some final tidbits of sauce that I didn't include when going over those 4 key components. Now, this is some huge psychological sauce, but I have here, you are manipulating the consumer or force feeding a false emotion that makes them view the product as that much greater than it actually may be when they own it. Now, this is mainly obviously catered to my drop shippers, but the best way to give you an example of this is to think of clothing brands, right? Their entire image is selling a vibe, not the product itself. And half of the big brands out there have very mediocre products and clothing, but they sell a lifestyle that makes the consumer perceive the product as much better than it actually is. So in simple terms, you're feeding the viewer a false emotion of how they think they would feel with the product. For example, my office with anime blades, the product that I just showed you guys in that previous video, was a product that I recently took to the moon. The account has over 100,000 followers. And the product in and of itself is cool and nice. But I can say without a doubt, one of the reasons it performed the best and no competitor has gotten anywhere near to the engagement I have is because I'm selling a vibe along with it, in the form of a really nice, cool, trendy room. So although 90% of the people buying it don't have anything that looks nearly as cool as this, don't have as nice of a house or as nice of a room or as cool of a room, they automatically associate that with the product itself. So even though the product itself is pretty cool, it only makes it that much cooler with the vibe I'm selling them with the visuals and background that I'm intentionally using. Okay, so second tidbit of final sauce, it's all of the tiny things collectively that make a viral video. And I already touched base on this, but it's all of these little things combined. It's all of the text placement, the emojis, the vibe you're selling, the little things like perfectly moving with your audios, making sure everything relates to the audience you're trying to resonate with. It's all of these tiny things that you aren't thinking about that actually make good content. Third tidbit of final sauce. Let's say you're a complete beginner or you're just now getting into content. You haven't even made 100 videos. In the beginning, you want to copy what works and then let that feed your original ideas. Not only can you get away with copying what works and go viral, but at the end of the day, the best content creators are the ones that are original. And you don't even have to be fully original. What I mean by this is take rendition and steal ideas from other content that you see all over the internet, but add your own sweet little twist. And then over time, You want to slowly increase how original you're being and decrease how much you're copying. That's really your best and fastest route to becoming a good content creator. Fourth final tidbit of sauce, you want to make sure your content is appropriate for your target audience. So I see a lot of people, they'll be selling a product that's mainly catered to this super old audience, mainly like moms, and then they'll go and make a bunch of 11 Labs style brain rot YouTube kid style videos. It doesn't make sense, and you're never going to go viral and make sales by doing this. You have to understand the psychology behind everything instead of just going out there and randomly doing things. When you're making a video, whether you're promoting a product, your personal brand, whatever you're making content about, you must figure out who that content is for, and then figure out what that audience likes to watch and what they engage with the most, and based off of that information, cater your content to them. And last but not least, directly targeted towards my dropshippers are stop making your videos look like ads. Quit saying the TikTok made me buy it. Quit saying go buy this. Quit trying to name off every benefit you can. Quit using your made up brand name in your videos. Nobody even knows who you are, and it only leads to horrible engagement and making your videos seem like ads. Once again, you must remember and keep this on your mind at all times. We are making ads in the form of engaging content. Okay guys, so that's gonna wrap up this presentation. Now, knowing that we're posting and depending on platforms and algorithms, obviously, even when you put out some of the best content ever, you still have the chance of not going viral. But utilizing this framework and even coming back to this video whenever you need will put you on a perfect path to consistently, at least 8 or 9 times out of 10, get the engagement that your video deserves. Now, before I let you guys go, I do want to give you the opportunity to join my organic dropshipping Discord for free. Inside there, not only will you master content, but learn how to turn that content into money by converting views into sales with a physical product. Inside is my full A to Z organic dropshipping course, which is packed with all kinds of value, even stuff like live filming with me. Also, an active community of organic dropshippers and content creators, from beginners that have never made a single dollar and barely done any views to people who have done billions of views and hundreds of thousands of dollars with this business model. I throw in winning products all the time, winning content all the time. We host group calls and special guests weekly. You get access to all of my teams, from customer support reps, website developers, product research VAs, my suppliers, you name it, it's in there. Everything that you could possibly think of to take you from wherever you're at to an advanced organic dropshipper making thousands of dollars and doing millions and billions of views with organic content. So if you're interested and possibly want to change your life, I'm going to leave the link to join in the description below, as well as my Instagram and Twitter if you want to connect with me on other platforms. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. If you gained a lot out of this and you actually go and apply it and see huge changes in your content, don't forget to come back to this video and let me know by commenting. I try to respond to every single comment. But that's all I have for you guys today. So now that you have all of this information you just soaked up, it's time for you to go out there and start making content.